That sense of overwhelm, I don't want to underestimate it. All of that is creating this enormous pressure, and it's real. It's more real than I think it's ever been. The starting point is really to understand that you have to create some space in your calendar, creating an hour a week where you could think, where you could get ahead, where you could plan, where you could anticipate how do I have a difficult conversation with somebody that's actually going to help us move the ball forward. It's all of those kind of not yet urgent matters that are going to make a difference that I want you to have just a tiny bit of time to do. So this is a journey. This does not happen overnight. I think we can get some levity, if you will, on a relationship or on a challenge or on a time zone or on a delegation problem quickly. But that's a practice you're going to have to hone for many, many years. And in fact, maybe for the rest of your life. The secret, though, there is no growth in comfort and no comfort in growth. Yet the big leaps are how careers are made and how businesses excel. So how do you master not knowing it all or feeling like an imposter? How do you have the conversations that lead to trust and, of course, excellence? How do you take charge of the things that you can control? How do you thrive outside your comfort zone? That's what this podcast is about. I'm your host, Wanda Wallace, and it's time to get out of your comfort zone. Hey, welcome to the conversation. Today we're going to do a very different conversation. It's going to be a conversation with, well, me. I've been on a passion lately to talk about people who are mid-career and some of the challenges they're having and the ways in which we need to help them. So to tackle this problem, I want to introduce Bianca Rose. Bianca works part-time for me as a writer and media specialist and content strategist, and she's been just a right hand in so many ways for work that we've been doing. Bianca's been collecting all the stories that are questions that have come in from various media and websites. And what we're going to do is kind of address some of the key questions I'm hearing from people in their mid-careers. So if you are mid-career, meaning somewhere in the middle of the stack, you have a small team reporting to you, but you're not yet in the senior ranks, I think we're going to have some good advice for you. If you're a senior and trying to give some advice to that great talent underneath you who is sandwiched in the middle, I think we've got some advice for you. So let me introduce Bianca and we'll get started with our questions. Bianca.
Thank you, Wanda. Yes. So my first question is, why do you even care about this? So why does this matter to you specifically to talk about mid-career managers?
Perhaps because I'm crazy. Let me just say that at the start, because I spend my life working with top senior executives, with top teams, and doing a variety of speaking engagements and training programs and so on. So it's not like I don't have a full life. But I look at what's happening in all of my clients, and I can't help but notice how much people in the mid-careers are struggling. And they're struggling because they're sandwiched from the top with enormous expectations from their senior managers. They're still trying to prove themselves. They still got delivery. They're still responsible for some execution. So, just imagine that place where you're still trying to prove how good you are and hope for that bigger title or that bigger responsibility. And at the same time, they have a younger generation working for them that is expecting to be managed in a very different way. And they are literally sandwiched between those two and having a hard time. And just imagine, these are the managers in the middle of the organization that typically when somebody says on a survey, I'm leaving because of bad management, these are the people they're leaving. By the time you get to senior ranks, you sort of know what to expect. You kind of got multiple degrees of freedom, but this mid-rank are the ones that are literally the culture carriers in the organization. Yet we're spending practically no time giving them guidance. So we may have a training program, but it will give them the same old advice that they've always heard. Yes, you need to delegate. Yes, it's true you need to delegate. That isn't the problem. We're not giving them the depth of knowledge they need to actually get the job done. And besides which, I don't think we should wait another 10 years for them to reach senior levels and then have to recover from the same mistakes that I see my senior leaders making today as leaders. So I'm kind of on a passion about helping this group of people do a better job.
And I think they are appreciative of that because out of all the questions that we've gotten, half of them were of senior leaders who were dealing with the problems of these mid-career managers. And the other half was the mid-career managers saying, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, what is going on? Please help.
Yeah. Yeah. That sense of overwhelm, I don't want to underestimate it. I mean, I think everybody is running around saying, I'm overly stressed, I'm coming close to burnout, I'm exhausted, I'm super busy. We're all saying that. But I think the uncertainty of everything that happens in the world, you can provide your own list, the uncertainty of the economy, the uncertainty of the status, the uncertainty of your own job. Not that people are worried about losing a job necessarily, but the uncertainty of what's going to happen next in my job. Am I going to have the opportunity to say, all of that is creating this enormous pressure, and it's real. It's more real than I think it's ever been. We have to tackle it.
So what do you think is the first step that someone who feels like that could take?
Okay, so one, we have to admit that there is a problem. Okay, so let's admit that there's a problem. And the second is other managers have figured out how to sort this out. You too can figure out how to sort it out. But you don't need to try to do it all on your own. Why? There are resources out there to help you that are much more effective. So the starting point is really to understand that you have to create some space in your calendar. Have to create some space. Now, I'm not talking about a free day a week. That is not going to happen anytime in the near future. And I'm not talking about adding another 5 hours to your week. That is unrealistic as well. I'm talking about creating an hour a week where you could think, where you could get ahead, where you could plan, where you could anticipate, how do I have a difficult conversation with somebody that's actually going to help us move the ball forward on a key topic. So creating a little space. You do that not by working faster yourself, but by creating leverage within your team. It's what your senior leaders will be saying all the time. Yes, you need to delegate. Yes, yes, yes. It's creating leverage. It's getting that team to do more than the individuals could do all on their own, or more than you could do all on your own. And most people start with trying to delegate. And the way most people start with delegating is they get a pitch from somewhere in the organization, delegate more, and they charge off to delegate more. And so they'll call a team member and say, okay, this is your task. I want you to go and do this task. It's over to you. This is important. You can handle it. I have faith in you. And call me if you need me. And maybe they give a little more instruction along the way. And, person goes off dutifully to do the task, but doesn't do it the way the manager wants it done, or the quality the manager is expecting, or in the time the manager is expecting. And then the deadline is coming. And rather than disappoint your leader, you pick it up yourself and end up doing it yourself. So now you're burning the midnight oil. It's last minute. That's not good for anybody. The junior person reporting to you is now disillusioned, disappointed, frustrated. The senior manager wonders what on earth is going on with you because you seem to have lost it. Like, nobody is happy in this equation. So there should be a clue that this is not the way to go. So I heard a quote today from Richard Medcalf, as you know, Bianca, one of my favorite people. And he said, the secret is bargain transparency. Odd phrasing, but what he means is eyes on, hands off. It's a lovely phrase to describe what I think it is you need to do with delegation so that people feel real accountability for the work, but you can steer the work without telling people what to do and micromanaging it. And you know where you are at each major gateway on the work. So you can say, oh, there's a change, or, oh, I've got some new information, or, oh, that wasn't quite what I had in mind. Let's regroup. And I still leave the person owning it, but I can steer it. And there is a methodology for this. There's a plan for this. There's a process for this we just need to teach it. It's not hard.
Yes. And I know you have a specific, I know you go about delegating in a specific way. There is something about questions. Can you tell us more about that?
Questions. Yes, the secret to delegating is being crystal clear that we have an outcome, and the person I'm delegating to, let's say it's you in this case, Bianca, that we understand that outcome in exactly the same way. Because if you don't understand the outcome the way I understand the outcome, I have got to micromanage you to get where I want to go. So we've got to start with a goal, an outcome that we both agree on and understand. Then we're going to back down to say, all right, what are the conditions that have to be met? The non-negotiables, if you will, the timeline, the people involved, the budget, that sort of thing, plus more, actually. And then we need to set milestones. What has to happen between now and that goal to achieve that goal within these boundary conditions? And those milestones might be trivial, might be very tight, or they might be kind of extended, depending upon the person, the skill level, a whole bunch of stuff. And now when we come to the milestone, what I want to do is to say, okay, Bianca, what do you think you need to do? And how do you think you need to do it? And what about this issue that I know in my mind is going to get in the way, but I ask you about it so I get you to think for yourself. And in doing that, I'm boosting your confidence. I'm boosting my confidence in you. I'm actually showing you how to do it without dictating to you what to do. It's powerful. And it allows me then to say, great, that sounds good. Go ahead with that. And then we'll see at the end of that milestone, we'll course correct again with questions. The secret, though, is if I'm asking questions, I'm getting you to think. And that's the only way to get accountability, because then you own it.
Great. Wonderful. So you're getting me to think, and you're also getting me to take accountability for the thing that you want me to do. And at the same time, it feels like it's my idea because I was the one that came up with it, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And then I don't have to police that you did what you said you would do because it was your idea in the beginning. And you come up with a better way along the way. You know the goal, you know the boundary conditions, you know the milestone, you know the metric, you know the process. Chances are pretty high that whatever you discovered on the way are actually consistent with what we're trying to achieve. So not only do I get you to think, I get you thinking in a smarter way.
Mm-hmm. So that the next time you won't have to give me as many questions.
Or I don't have to give you as many milestones. And it's pretty exciting because it looks like I'm trusting you. And I'm boosting your confidence in the meantime because I'm going to say, yeah, that sounds right. Go ahead.
Lovely. So let's backtrack for a second because you said that if you're not delegating in the right way, you're not saving time for the things that really matter. So if I'm a mid-career manager, A, what does really matter? What is it that I should be doing? What is actually my job? And what is the real problem? Why am I not getting to this?
Okay, so you asked me the first question is, where do I start? And where do you start is creating a little bit of space in your calendar. Because if I can create space in your calendar, then I can get you to pull back and evaluate what's the thing that either only I can do or that has the greatest value for the organization, for my team, for my manager. And let me put my energy on that. So in effect, you're looking for what's that 20% thing that contributes 80% of the outcome. What do I want my reputation built on is another way of thinking about it. And frequently that's not the most urgent fire. Yes, of course, everybody's delighted that you fight that fire and put it out. Yes, of course. But firefighting every day is exhausting and it isn't moving the organization forward. And it certainly doesn't get you noticed and recognized and advanced and higher, so on. So we got to create some space to begin to say, where is it that I have the most impact? Because if I don't have space, then I can't do anything extra. So now, where is the place to have impact? That takes some careful thinking. It's not just a matter of, oh, I know I need to do this. It's kind of like, what do I do to get ahead? Where do I see that the organization is going? What's the information I need to bring back to my team? I need to have time to have the conversations for. What's the strategic idea we really need to get focused on? What's the future trend that I want to get on top of? It's all of those kind of not yet urgent matters that are going to make a difference that I want you to have just a tiny bit of time to do, because that's where you have big impact. Now, I'm going to say you don't have that impact by just sitting in your office and saying, here's how I know I have impact. You test that. You have your own ideas. You test that. You talk to your manager. You talk to your mentors. You talk to your manager's manager and say, in effect, look, I think if I could do a little bit more of this, this would have really big impact on the organization. Do you see it that way? Or do you see something else? Or you could even say, what's the one thing you wish I could free time up to do a little bit more? Or you can even say, if you were in my shoes, where would you be putting your time? Just getting the space to say, not just the run the maze, day to day to day to day, so I can focus on where I have the big impact.
So I think the big buzzword here is strategy. Focus on things that are strategic and that are going to have the largest influence and impact in the long run, rather than just fighting immediate problems.
I happen to agree with that, but I'm also on a rant lately because we overuse the word strategy and we think that having a plan is the strategy and that strategy will save everything. And it doesn't quite work that way. So yeah, I've been using the word impact rather than strategy. What has bigger impact? what has bigger recognizability, what has more future push behind it, what are the big topics that the organization really wants to see us move forward on. It's those kind of bigger issues, if you will, some of which might not be the largest things going on in the organization, but they happen to be the big issues in my area of responsibility. So yes, we could call that strategic, but we've overused that word.
Mm-hmm. But I suppose that is what sometimes shows up in 360 assessments.
Totally.
Or what people are worried about, that they're not having enough impact, that they're not thinking in the long run, that they're not thinking about the bigger picture is another one of those buzzwords. So would you say that senior leaders that's what they're looking for? That's what
Absolutely, they need to learn? Totally. That is what every senior leader gives on every feedback report, 360 feedback report that I've ever conducted in my life. I have never seen a senior leader saying you're being too strategic. It doesn't happen. What they say is you're being too tactical. You're too much in the day-to-day. You're too into the weeds. You're too tied to the details. You've got to let go so you can elevate yourself above the weeds and kind of see the bigger field. You could say the forest for the trees, but it's just a little bit smaller than that. See the field, see the playing field, see the options, see the potential moves, rather than just be head down like this, and you can't see the entire time. So that's what every senior leader is looking for.
So that is what is meant when they give you that feedback.
That's what they meant. A senior leader recently said of somebody that I was coaching, I want to see this person be more of my thinking partner. I need them to be my thinking partner, to focus on the trends, to see the opportunities, to brainstorm an acquisition with me, to talk about what could be. What do we do about this problem long term? And that means you have got to stop being so busy running like a rat in a maze, not to give rats a bad rap, but running in a maze, to have the capacity to do those conversations with your senior leaders.
So what you're saying, it's not helpful to do more at all. And appearing busy is often not what you want.
Exactly. Being busy is not what we want, because you can't think when you're super busy. I need you time to think. Now, I realize you're going to be busy. Nobody's going to be slack time. It's not like you get to put your feet up on your desk and lean back and take a nap. That's not what's going on. But if you just could buy yourself an hour a week to think, you could have bigger impact. And that's the whole point.
So my manager wants me to do all of these big strategic thinking impact conversations, but my manager also wants everything that is getting done right now to also get done with the same level of excellence. Yep. Which is why we're getting everybody exhausted and why everyone's overwhelmed. So yes. How do we actually get to this extra hour where we can do the strategic thinking? What are we actually doing now?
All right. So if you think about, your manager does want perfection, and some managers are worse than that than others. Some leaders are worse than that than others. Granted, I get it. I understand. And you've been delivering perfection. Okay, fine. But now you want your team to do more, and you know it's going to take your team longer, and it's not going to be where you'd like it to be. Now, don't take the most important thing that happens for the entire year and start to delegate to the team right now. Like if you've got a major report going to the board of your company, perhaps that's not where you start delegation, okay? So pick something else. Maybe it's a draft of that report. Maybe it's a PowerPoint that's an internal presentation. Maybe it's something else. Negotiate with your manager. Let your manager know what you're going to do, that you're going to stay on top of it, that here's how you're going to delegate. Here's what your process is going to look like. Here's where your checkpoints are going to be. But let your manager know it's not going to be as perfect as they're used to seeing you, because you've got to grow the talent underneath you. And if that manager can't understand that, then we need to have a different conversation, because I think most managers will. Now, I also will know that some of your senior leaders will come back having forgotten that they had this conversation with you and go back and say, but Wanda, what happened here? It's not da-da-da-da. And you just need to calmly say, okay, manager, I get it. I see it. I'm training the team. It takes a little while. Patience, please. Remind them of the conversation, when and where you had that conversation. And don't freak out. Like, you've got another pass at getting this corrected. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you don't have to let the team do it all. You can have them prepare the data that you then write the report on, right?
Right. Or better yet, I mean, let them collect the data. Let them do a first pass on the error analysis on the data. Let them do a draft of the key analysis of that. Let them draw some conclusions. Sit down, and they'll sit down with you at each of those steps, and you get to have your guidance and ask your questions. And they might even draft that report. You probably have to write the final version yourself. You probably have to write the executive summary yourself. You probably have to do the final data analysis yourself, maybe, depending on the talent of your team. But there's a ton that they can do to get it started before you jump in. And that just saves you, there's hours.
And it will get them empowered.
Yeah.
They will like doing it if they know that what they're doing is actually ending up on the senior person's desk.
Exactly.
In some capacity.
And if you explain that, that's part of your goal setting. If you explain where this is going, why this is going, you explain what it is that you need to hold on to, then they're going to accept that that's okay, I get that.
Okay. So delegation is one piece.
Delegation. And with delegation comes accountability, because I've got to get people to own it. And then with the delegation, we have our touch points, which means I now need to learn to be able to give feedback in a truly effective way. And the brilliant part about this is it becomes feedback in the stream of doing the day-to-day work. So yes, we need to tidy up how we give feedback, because the feedback that really matters is the message that is really difficult to deliver. It's not you made a mistake here or didn't make a mistake. It's I don't see you being as methodical in your approach as I'm expecting you to be. That kind of feedback, the hard ones, are the ones that are going to make the difference. And I don't think there's anybody working for you, or let me rephrase this. There's nobody who should be working for you or should continue to work for you who really doesn't want to improve their capability. What they don't want is for you to be cruel in the feedback, inconsistent in the feedback, constantly complaining about the feedback, piling it on, and not showing them how to do it. And the beauty of what I'm describing is you can give feedback along with the delegation and the accountability. It becomes part of the whole process if I tidy up your approach to giving feedback.
So that is during a milestone conversation?
Yeah, during a milestone conversation, right. So you've just gone and collected the data and you've just taken a first pass at the errors, and I'm asking you questions. Bianca, what did you discover? Now, I know that there's a consistent pattern of errors because I've looked at that data set for years. So I know that there are 3 places we need to look, and I'm going to say, okay, well, what about this? Did you look here? All right, maybe I have you do that 2 or 3 times. And now I say, all right, Bianca, I need to have you thinking more carefully about the sources of mistakes that are coming. I need you to begin to anticipate. That gets wrapped up in the strategic conversation, for example. I need you to be more proactive, strategic, and you don't even know what I'm talking about. If I learn to give that feedback in a straightforward, calm manner, I can actually help you understand what it is I'm looking for you to learn to do in a better way. Okay? If I don't pile that on with 5 other mistakes you made, then you're going to go, oh, ooh, okay, I missed that. I don't really understand. I got to work harder at this. Okay. And go dig in and get better at it. And we win. Both of us win in that one. So yes, and the milestone conversations are the natural places for this to happen.
So feedback is best when it's specific and when it's tied to something that I've done well, maybe, and when it's tied to a specific situation that you then help me to improve on.
When it's one thing, not 5. When it's actionable, which means it's something you did or didn't do or could do, so action, and not a judgment. And when it's got a specific example attached to it, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's when it's really useful. And in this whole process, the other thing about feedback is it's hard to take feedback from somebody you think doesn't care about you. But when I'm giving you accountability and I'm trying to coach you to get to this end goal, and I'm teaching you along the way, and I'm asking good questions and making you think and boosting your confidence, I've solved the problem of you believing I care about you.
So that brings us to the very next topic that many people have asked about: relationships. So building a relationship with your team, we've sort of started covering that, but also building a relationship with your manager and with your peers and having a bigger network.
Yep.
I think that is crucial as a mid-career manager. That is where your network starts to become really important and where your conversations start to have to matter
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So,
I think when you're mid-career and above, everything ultimately spends on the relationships. If you don't get those relationships out right, then you're going to struggle to get anything done, and you will struggle to have the kind of impact or the advancement that you're looking for. It is a relationship game. Now, you still have, some expertise knowledge, but it's the relationship game that really matters. What I see is most mid-career managers work super hard to have a good relationship with their direct reports because they know that matters. If you don't get that right, we've got a bigger problem. But most get that right. What they're not, so there are two things that I then watch people totally screw up and then spend the next 10 years trying to recover from. One is not managing their peer-to-peer relationships well, so that they're in their push to go, 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 drive, 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 deliver, 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 no time. They don't pause to treat their peers with the respect the peers are hoping for, and they damage peer relationships. Damaging a peer relationships means that A, you're going to struggle to get promoted because none of those peers want to work for you. And B, if you do get promoted, you're going to have to call me, and then we're going to end up having a year of coaching to repair the relationships that we shouldn't have damaged in the first place. That is probably 80% of my coaching practice with senior leaders, is helping them fix the relationships that have broken. Okay. All right. 70% of my coaching. It's a big part. So I want you to have that space now to navigate those relationships so you don't have to recover from it later. The other thing that I watch mid-career managers get wrong is their manager. So, the typical routine, particularly at mid-career, as you had a manager that was a great supporter of yours, that manager goes off to their next big job, hopefully within the company. Some other manager comes in who's just a notch above you, but only just a notch above you and not as skilled as your last manager. And that relationship with you and your new manager gets sticky really quickly. And resisting that manager's authority is not a good scenario. I don't care how good or incompetent or whatever, you have to have a good relationship with your immediate manager or you're gonna struggle, period. And I watch a lot of people say, I don't have time for this. And it's a huge mistake. That's another relationship that's damaged that you will recover 10 years later when you're in the senior ranks.
So Wanda, you know what I'm about to say. There are many questions that say, well, yes, I would like to have a good relationship with person X, but they're just difficult. I can't make it work. They're a bad manager, maybe.
We fill in with all sorts of judgments. They're self-serving, they're jealous, they're overly political, and we may put in a ton of judgments in there that justify my belief that this other person is the problem. All right? So you know what I'm going to say, Bianca. I'm going to tell you that regardless what you think about that other problem, you own 50% of it. So just let that sink in for a minute. 50% of it is how you interact with that other person. What you say, what your body language says, what your facial expression says, what you don't say, all of those, you own 50% of it. And you can change the dynamics of that relationship by changing what you do. All right, now people go, yeah, Wanda. I promise you that this works. So I'm going to give you two tactics that I have seen work over and over again. Number one, find one thing you respect about that difficult person, quote unquote, difficult person, and show it. I only need one thing. I have seen more relationships turn around overnight by that single gesture. And people will call me and go, Wanda, I can't believe that worked. I just did it because I was going to prove you wrong, but it worked. All right. It does. If you're not showing respect, you're not going to get any respect back. So, and that becomes, if you show respect, get a little respect back, we can find a path forward. You don't show respect, you're not going to get it. And then we're off to the races on where that goes. So that's one tactic. A second tactic is, regardless how bad, quote unquote, you think this person is, somebody in the organization likes them. They wouldn't be there. You need to go find that person, figure out what they like, figure out how they manage the personality, figure out what their approach is, what their style is, and off you go. All right, I'm going to give a personal example. I have a wonderful, lovely client that is still a very big client of mine and whom I've enjoyed immensely working with for many, many years. Let me just preface this by saying, and I won't name them, but initially they were filled with people that drove me batty. Okay, so I'm a bit of an extroverted character. When I'm dealing with deep introverts and they don't react or respond, it drives me bonkers because I can't get anything out of them. I don't know where they're standing, where they're thinking, or what they. All right, now I could label them as wrong, but if I'm going to, or they're not good managers or they shouldn't be in senior leadership, I'm gonna say all of that. But if I'm going to work with that client or I'm going to succeed in that client, I got to learn to work with that personality. All right, so what do? I call up my favorite introverted friends and I say, okay, how do I deal with someone like you in a classroom or in a coaching session? And a couple of them gave me really good advice, really straightforward. One of them in particular, David, bless him, he says, here's what you got to do. It was easy. Once I learned to do that, I got a different response out of them. I started enjoying it more.
What was
They're
it
still
in
a client today.
Situation? What is it that you started doing?
One of the things I learned is I have to ask the question and give space. I can't ask the question, expect an instantaneous response. And what was happening is I wasn't getting any reaction. So I press harder with a bigger question and more, it's almost like I was getting in their face more and more. And what David taught me is no, wait, pause, get comfortable with the science. You have to have time to think. They'll come back to you. It may take a day, but they'll come back to you. And so long as I could pull back and have that calmness in me, then I started getting the responses back from them.
Wonderful. I like it. So let's summarize what we've covered so far. So what my manager wants from me, if I'm a mid-career leader, is more strategic impact conversations, more bigger picture thinking, more time for the things that my manager cares about, and still have me or my team deliver excellent results, which is also what my team wants. But my team wants to be involved. My team wants to be empowered. My team wants to be a part and of the thinking, of the plan, of the execution, of the strategy. And I can get there by delegating, by asking questions. I can get there by helping them understand the accountability part and having them be accountable for the project that they're now managing in part, and by giving feedback that actually is critical.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but there's one more thing that is, so I've got the goal, I've got the accountability, I'm doing the coaching, I'm doing the feedback, we got the milestones, we're kind of moving forward, I've got my manager on board. It's also really important that I figure out how to keep the inspiration up. Mm-hmm. How do I get people drawn into this activity as something really important to do so they feel really good about it and they're really willing to give a little bit more of themselves. That inspiration piece is the last piece to add to this equation. Now, it fits with all that I've already described, but just imagine you're working for a manager who's both making you feel good about your own thinking, who's helping you grow and develop, who's giving you some feedback, who seems to care about you, and they're inspiring. We have a win-win-win-win, mm-hmm. And your reputation as a leader is going to go up, up, up. So there we have it. That's the formula.
So how do I do it? How do I motivate people? How do I inspire them?
Okay. Well, to motivate, I've got to so first off, motivation is I'm going to work with you, Bianca, as my direct report. To motivate you, I can't. All I can do is create the conditions that you are more likely to be motivated by. So one, I need to give you a compelling reason why we're doing what we're doing. I need to paint that as an opportunity that is worthwhile. And even if it's a bit mundane, and the job is a little bit boring, I can still tell you why I need you to do this job, why I need you to be involved, and what's there to be gained. Because there's a reason we're doing it. If there's not a reason we do it, then don't do it. Just save yourself the hassle. Don't bother. But I also need to say, I need to understand for you, Bianca, what it is that you want, that you value, that you're trying to achieve, what really matters to you. When I understand that, then I know how to paint this opportunity or this task in a way that's compelling to you. So let's say, for example, I know that what you're really trying to do is build your network and your reputation, let's say. All right, then fine. When I ask you to do this task, I'm going to say, I want to assure you that I'm going to put your name as one of the key drivers behind this work. That's going to help your reputation. I promise you that I'm going to make sure you're in touch with a lot of people in the process of this one. That's going to help you build your network. I promise you that the people you're going to work with, you're actually going to enjoy. And if those are your key drivers, then you're going to that is going to be inspirational. So that's 2. And then 3, when I believe in you and I say, I know you can do this, and I mean it, that is inspiring. Now, how do I get to believe in you and know that you can do it? We're back to our milestones. When we've got a pathway, I know what the steps are. I know what your thinking is. I know how you're planning it. I know where we are. I know we can course correct if we need to. Then I can believe in you. Short of that,
thought about
I
it
can't.
and that I'm owning it. And now,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
So you need to believe in your team. You also need to inspire them in a way that is relevant to the entire company or organization. Say, what is the bigger purpose of this? And you need to know their key drivers, what motivates this person personally. But what if I don't know?
Ask.
How do I ask?
Ask the question. I could ask very simply, Bianca, what do you want to achieve for yourself? Like, what do you want to learn? What do you want to experience? What would get you excited to be a part of in the next year? Don't give me 5 years from now where you want to be in your career. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what it is that you want to learn. That's a good starting point. Or I can ask you, there are 4, 5, 7 things that I think are really pretty powerful for most people. And I can ask you about that. Like, what matters more to you? Does it matter more to you, the team of people that you're working with? Or does it matter more about having your expertise recognized? That'll give me a pretty good clue on what is really motivating to you.
All right. Okay, so we know what our managers want. We know what our teams want. Now, let's say that I'm one of the people that reached out to submit a question to this podcast because I'm overwhelmed, because I've not managed to do it so far. And I'm also already known for not being that great at it, maybe. So maybe someone in my superior level thinks that I'm not ready to be on the next level. Maybe someone on my team has said they're not a great manager. Maybe they think I'm quote unquote difficult. So how can I recover from that? How do I change my perception, like people's perception of me?
All right. So first off, you need a game plan on what you're going to do. And I literally mean a game plan. You need a specific set of actions that you're going to take with a timeline with your own accountability for that. All right. When you have that game plan in place, then you go to, let's say, your manager or someone else, whoever is relevant to you. I'll call them a stakeholder because they may be a peer and they may be more senior to you. And you say, I know I need to get better at X. You don't need to say, you told me I need to get better at X. You just say, I know I need to get better at. I don't feel I'm leading the way I want to be leading. So I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to do, and you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the reason you do that is you're putting the person on notice to see it, to watch it, to see if you do it. And you say to them, I want you to hold me accountable. If you see me falling off this plan, I would like to hear from you. Any way you want to. Send me an anonymous note on my desk is fine, but I want to know if you think I'm falling off this plan. And I'm going to come around and talk to you about it in 2, 3 months to make sure you're seeing that I am indeed making progress and that my plan is working, that it's getting where I want to go. Because the hardest thing is most people see you do the one thing, the one time, the way you used to do it, and it way overshadows everything else that they weren't really paying attention to. It's called confirmation bias. And so you've got to put another confirmation in there. And besides which, saying it out loud in public kind of holds you accountable for really getting it done. So you manage both the reputation and the process along the way. And, people love that you are trying to do something different, that you heard their concerns, that you're involving them in the counseling. It's just, and then the coaching or the advice giving. It's just wonderful for reputation.
by speaking up about it and by being loud about my quote unquote mistakes, I'm actually not calling attention to the problem so much so as to the fact that I'm working on a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, that I see a better way and I'm going to try a better way. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to shift and try yet another way because this matters to me to get it right. I can't, somebody who doesn't respect that
and even
is not in
that
your
is a
stakeholder
signal
set.
to your manager and their peers that you are thinking strategically and that
Yeah.
you are having an impact
Right.
brain on that you're working on being better and on expanding your impact and your influence and your leadership.
Right. Okay, now I want to say one thing. It's easy for us to talk about all of these examples, Bianca, because we're talking about them in abstract. I'm not really dealing with an immediate problem for a particular person with a particular individual. So I want to just admit that we've done this in abstract. And I want to admit that the nuances of a particular person are really important. So, for example, if I'm trying to say to a peer who's been highly critical of me and whom I don't get along terribly well with, that I think I'm not a great manager and I'm going to work on something, that takes a little bit more nuance in the conversation. So I just want to admit, I know that. And it's important to work through that nuance. But what I'm trying to do is to give you a direction. And then you can take that nuance to somebody you do trust and say, all right, if I'm trying to go in this direction, how could I do that with this person? And your peers you trust often have great advice about subtle shifts, slight changes in language that will make that conversation go smoothly.
I think also, yes, of course, this is abstract, but if I'm totally overwhelmed by everything and I know this is not working, this at least gives me some strands that I can, like roads that I can walk down and say, is this my problem? Or is this my problem? Or maybe both of them are my problem. And then I could work on it. So if I do want to work on this, what is it that I could be doing immediately? Or even in the long run, let's say I was listening to this podcast and I think, oh yes, that's me you're talking about. So what do I do now?
All right. Well, I will say we have a brand new course that I'm super, 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 super excited about. It's called Mid-Career Manager, and you can find out more about it on exceptionalleader.com. I think it is specifically targeted to the problems we've been discussing at this moment in time, and it gives space for that peer-to-peer interaction, the peer feedback and reaction, the peer coaching, and the nuance, which I think is what is so exciting about the possibility. So yes, go to exceptionalleader.com, send us an email, tell us you'd like to be involved. Of course. In beyond that, though, let me not just turn this into a self-serving promotional exercise. Beyond that, find a leader at your level or just a notch above you that you think is doing that thing that you want to improve on better than you're doing it. And have the courage to go and ask, how do you do this? Will you coach me on this? If you don't have the courage to ask, then just watch them really closely. Talk to other people who are around them. Talk to their team members. Ask them the team member, what does that leader do and how do they do it and why does that work for you and so on. You'll get tactics by watching people you admire. And it may not be one person that you admire for every single thing, but if I put a smorgasbord of people together with different skills and I tackle them one by one, I will get better. And that's another way of doing it. Because again, it's not the textbook answer. It's the concept in the practice and reality of your organization with some of the nuanced details that are going to help you make a difference.
And also, I'm assuming that this is not a one size fits all, yes, but also not a one and done situation. So I will have to keep adjusting each of these as I go along?
Yeah, because, ultimately what's happening at the mid-career level is that you have been successful for a set of behaviors, a depth of knowledge, an accuracy, a perfectionist speed, responsiveness, all of those things have made you successful to date. But what we're asking you to do is do a leap change to the next level of impact. And that next level of impact, you're probably at your capacity of what you can get done the way you've always done it. So now I have really got to say, stop doing what you've always done, what has made you successful. keep some of it and add some new skills. It's not like I abandon it. I have to add some new skills. So this is a journey. This does not happen overnight. I think we can get some levity, if you will, on a relationship or on a challenge or on a time zone or on a delegation problem quickly. But that's a practice you're going to have to hone for many, many years. And in fact, maybe for the rest of your life, because leadership is an art form.
And one that takes practice, but also if I get this right now, I won't have to call on you in 15 years when I'm on the next level and say, oh, I know you told me to work on that then, but I didn't. And now I'm in a bigger problem.
And now on a bigger problem, and the stakes are higher and the visibility is higher and so on. No, I hope you'll be calling me, but for a completely different set of problems with a shorter track record and a bigger impact and some other reasons. So, but we shouldn't be having to solve these problems, all the way through your career. This is something you should be able to get ahead of right now, so you can enjoy your life and your career.
Yeah. And I think you've given people great perspective on how to get started. So also to everyone, if you ask questions, you're going to get answers. So keep asking good questions and reach out to Wanda. Where could we reach you?
You can go to our website, which is leadership-forum.com. There's a link there to send me an email. You can go to outofthecomfortzone.com. There's a link to send an email there. And you can go to exceptionalleader.com. There's a link to send an email there. And if that isn't good enough, find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Either of those two, we try to be responsive to everything we hear.
Either we will get to you in person or you can join our podcast this way.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, Bianca, for the questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.